Today we're going to talk about Mitch McConnell's fatal mistake with a really ill-timed comment, what the Republican Party's attempt to purge Liz Cheney from its leadership means moving forward, and I interview Angelo Carusone, the president and CEO of Media Matters, about Fox News' insane lunge off the deep end and what steps we can actually take to stop them. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. So for once, it's not Dems in disarray. The Republican Party's in the midst of trying to throw Liz Cheney, who's currently the number 3 Republican in the House, out of her leadership position. All because she committed the crime of acknowledging objective reality that the election wasn't stolen and that Donald Trump bears responsibility for the insurrection on January 6th. She's also joined Democrats in calling for a commission to investigate the events of January 6th without the poison pill of trying to make it a commission that also looks at the George Floyd protests, which is what Republicans have resorted to try and diffuse responsibility off of themselves and instead be able to both sides everything into a stalemate. And the target on Cheney's back is basically evidence of this. If you want not just to succeed, but even to survive in today's GOP, you need to embrace Trump's lies about the election. And if you're willing to embrace those lies, then you are inherently opposed to democracy. If you're willing to pretend that there was fraud, pretend that machines were rigged, pretend that votes were being shipped in from Asia, pretend that officials were in cahoots with foreign powers, all in service of this imaginary scenario where the guy who lost somehow didn't lose, then you are opposed to democracy. It's all evidence of the fact that the big lie is the only thing that the Republican Party stands for. Now, when McConnell was asked whether Cheney would keep her leadership position while speaking to reporters in Kentucky, here's what he had to say.
Yeah, 100% of my focus is on stopping this new administration. I think the best way to look at what this new administration is, the president may have won the nomination, but Bernie Sanders won the argument about what the new administration should be like. We're confronted with severe challenges from a new administration and a narrow majority of Democrats in the House and a 50-50 Senate to turn America into a socialist country, and that's 100% of my focus.
Now, where have we heard that before? Oh, right.
Our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
In other words, we're seeing the same exact story play out that we saw during the Obama era, which was marred by record obstruction. Obstruction so horrendous that it basically became the beginning of the end for any semblance of functionality in Washington. And yet, still, despite admitting outright that his sole priority is stopping Democrats, the guy has the audacity to come out and, from the other side of his mouth, say stuff like this.
Bipartisanship is not on display this year, and the principal reason for that is I think what the new administration and the Democratic majorities in the House and Senate are doing are wildly out of proportion to what we need at this particular juncture.
Yes, how dare those Democrats not lend themselves to the idea of bipartisanship, says the guy who also believes that his sole function in government is to ensure that the other party fails. So look, when you hear Republicans wail about their desire for bipartisanship, remember that not only do they clearly not care about bipartisanship, which is obvious given McConnell's admission that 100% of his focus is on stopping this administration, but that they never cared about bipartisanship, considering McConnell was pulling the same shit a decade ago with the last Democratic president. His entire career is predicated solely not on helping people or making government work, but on obstructing Democrats so he can be in power. Again, the same theme. They're not fighting for principles, they are fighting for power for the sake of being in power. And that's not just me being partisan. What bills are Republicans passing across the country right now? Do they have to do with fiscal policy or limited government or states' rights or anything else they claim to support? No. They're introducing voter suppression bills, more than 300 of them, because their only goal is power. Their sole priority as a party is to do whatever is necessary to entrench their own minority rule. So between these bills like the ones passed in Georgia and now Florida and in a number of other states, and McConnell's outright statements promising that his only goal, literally 100% of his energy, is going to be spent on stopping Democrats, that is all the proof you need that the only discernible priority on the right is looking out for themselves. No values or governing principles, just power. And by the way, if you needed an example of asymmetric partisanship, just remember, the White House is still, to this day, holding good faith negotiations with the Republicans, even after the umpteenth admission in broad daylight that their only goal is to stop Democrats. And so with regard to Biden, look, I get that he wants bipartisanship. I get that that's his brand. He campaigned on it. I get the whole concept of catching more flies with honey. I understand all of that. But at the end of the day, we are kidding ourselves if we think there's going to be bipartisanship with a party not only not pretending to want bipartisanship, but literally telling you that their only priority is stopping you. It's not even discreet. McConnell didn't even get caught on a hot mic or anything. This is the public-facing position. They're broadcasting it. They are taking you by the shoulders and putting their faces right in your face and telling you point blank that they don't want bipartisanship. Just like they've done before, by the way. We watched the Republicans cry out about bipartisanship when Obama came into office and tried to pass the Recovery Act. Republicans got it whittled down, and then they didn't vote for it. Same with the ACA. Democrats succumbed to all these Republicans' demands. Democrats incorporated them to make it more palatable for those Republicans, who in turn refused to vote for it. But then they took office and enacted their entire agenda with zero Democratic support. Think about it. What do Republicans care about? Judges and tax cuts. They nuked the filibuster for what two things? Judges and tax cuts. They passed a 2017 tax cut for millionaires and billionaires with a simple majority. They confirmed 3 SCOTUS justices with a simple majority. At no point in more than a decade have Republicans actually been concerned about bipartisanship. Not when Democrats were in the majority and not when Republicans were in the majority. And so now, when they have zero power, to claim that they want bipartisanship is so false, such a bargain basement, transparent tactic. I don't know how they can say it with a straight face, honestly. And by the way, this exact issue is raised to Jen Psaki, and here's what she had to say.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said this morning, when asked about kind of the issues within his own party, that, quote, 100% of my focus is on stopping this new administration. And he touted kind of the unity within his caucus from Susan Collins to Ted Cruz. Are you concerned that it will be difficult to work with Republicans when you have these kind of statements coming from their leader?
Well, I guess the contrast for people to consider is 100% of our focus is on delivering relief to the American people, on getting the pandemic under control and putting people back to work. And we welcome support, engagement, and work with the Republicans on that. And the president has extended an open arm to that. The door to the Oval Office is open. He's invited Senator Capito to bring a group of her choosing to the White House next week. And we think there is opportunity for agreement to deliver on relief to the American people.
So look, when it comes to optics for the White House, fine. If they need to meet with Republicans to say that they met with Republicans, fine. But at the end of the day, Democrats have the majority, and we would be fools to water down a single bill or surrender an ounce of power to a party so dedicated to obstruction that they're literally admitting it out loud. To listen to my interview with Angelo Carusone, the president and CEO of Media Matters, about Fox News' lunge off the deep end and what steps we can actually take to stop them, check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel.